No, but basically I think that there is not such a big difference if I'm a citizen and there is sort of a grid coming through my backyard. There is not such a big difference whether it's coal-generated electricity that runs through that grid or whether it's renewable generated electricity that runs through the grid. So we'd say that the planning efforts, the information efforts, all these kind of things will have to be the same. And then I think that technology will help us to a certain degree, because the new development in sort of the pipelines and all these is that you do not have as much as it, I do not know all the English vocabulary here, but you know, when you have these transmission lines that you can see and which is very much harming the landscape, there to a much larger extent you can start to put them into the soil, and that is equally safe. And I think it's on a 4 to 6 years time horizon, then even the very big grids can be put into the soil. So all other things being equal, people will not feel sort of as harmed by this as they used to do. And one thing is for sure, if we in this crisis addresses grid and infrastructure challenges, it creates jobs on the spot. That's one thing that can definitely not be outsourced to distant regions. So I think that people can see an advantage there.
We've had the voice of Texas. We've had the voice of the European Court of Auditors. I need a voice from the regions. Sorry, sir. Can I bully anyone who's come in for the day, as it were, or even the week? Yes.
I don't have to be bullied. My name is Margaret Carter. I'm from the Center of Excellence for Renewable Energy, Energy Efficiency and Environment from Vienna, Austria. We are working on a project on biogas. We have a lot of wind energy in Austria anyhow. We're part of a consortium of 14 partners in 9 countries dealing with biogas. This is something that might be a little bit more controversial than wind energy because of the smell that is associated with it. Maybe a lot of people might be familiar with it, but I'm looking for information as to, the database that you have that's going to be available. I hope there's going to be a lot of cultural aspects embedded in that information, so you can look at the information and the results in context. But the political aspects of building, and the zoning, this is something that would be of very interest to me. And if the commissioner would be able to comment on something, because this was developed after the Russians cut off the natural gas a couple of years ago, and a lot of people were very, very cold in several countries, and so this project was developed after that. We're just getting started on it. We're really just in the beginning aspects of it. But communicating with stakeholders, policymakers, and the local public is something that we're very interested in. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think biogas is extremely important for a number of reasons, also because it can solve a lot of environment problems in Europe. My experience with that is that, yes, there could be smell problems, but there are also people who have sort of found ways that it goes from the individual. Yes, if you have it at individual farms, but you can also have it in a more centralized manner where actually the pipes go sort of underground, and there you handle the smell problem and part of the transportation problem. Because so far I think that you will also have a lot of experience here. But I think that what we have seen in the country I know best is the transportation problems. When they had these 400 trucks coming each day, just loading out smelly things, people did not like that. But then they have sort of put it down in some pipe systems, and there you can actually have biogas, which does not smell a lot. And I think that people who are neighbors to farmers, they would only like if it's being sort of used and utilized in a way. So I think that there are ways to deal with this. There are also some chemical things you can do in order to sort of diminish smells. Probably we are not there yet with all the technologies, but I think that there is a huge potential for Europe in biogas, and I think that was one of the things that we should simply just require from farmers from a certain size, because we need it also in our renewable targets portfolio. It could actually contribute substantial to that up to 2020.
Thank you very much indeed. As it were, I will say an official thank you to the Commissioner now, and I will turn to Edith Herzog in the hope that you hear the European Parliament as listen as you're going out the door, as it were. But thank you very much indeed on behalf of us all. I'll come back to you in a bit.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. And sorry being late a bit, but I don't know. I'm not sure if you have heard that the big tragedy happened in Hungary. That 1 million cubic meter of substance was leaking from the aluminium plant or nearby and covered thousands of hectares in Hungary. 120 people are in hospital in very dangerous situation, and a lot of them has died. And really, I'd like to start with that. The language is the most important, because everyone said these things is not dangerous, which is true for the chemical industry. It's not a dangerous substance as long you wash it down from your body. Yeah, so with the simply pure water, they could avoid this situation. But the population living in the town was not aware that it's simply like that, so they didn't wash it down. They went to the hospital, they went to the doctor, and meantime, the tragedy has happened. So language issue is the important one. Sorry, I had to deal with this case, and I could not really be here in time, but please understand it. But it's exactly the case which shows that how difficult to build the feeling to accept anything in your backyard. Yeah? Because when the tragedy happens, it's globally, within 1 minute, spread all around the world. Why to build the acceptance is a very local issue. You have to work a lot. You have to get the knowledge. You have to get the skills. You have to teach people how to live, how to work, and how to manage these things in their daily life, as this very single case has shown it. Although it's a chemical issue, I think it's a very important thing to know. I'd like to start with a statement that it's not only the low-carbon facility which has the NIMBY. Yeah? All industrial activities are facing the same challenge in Europe. We do not like in our backyard any kind of industrial activity. We think that the services are good, services are great, industry is bad. And we went through in each industry, you can find the same. You can find absolutely the same. Even it's a chemical plant, even it's any kind of industrial activity. It's a bit kind of Orwell. I don't know if you remember what Napoleon the Pig has said in the book of Orwell. It's easy to differentiate who is good. The good has 2 legs, no wings. Yeah, that was the easy identification. And therefore, my first comment that the NIMBY applies not only for energy and not only for low carbon energy, but just simply for everything. My second point regarding this direction, as I said, you have to build competence and you have to build the trust through the competence. It's not an easy thing, but you cannot avoid it. I just don't believe that you can do it only with the economic benefits for the people. These are important, but I don't think that these are the major one. The major one, that they know what to do, how to do, whom to ask help, and whom to negotiate when there is a problem to solve. My third sentence, and for me as a politician, that was the major reason I worked on the issues which are difficult from the public acceptance point of view, chemical industry, nuclear industry, and now low carbon, whatsoever industry we are talking about, is the fear. The fear is a very, very important factor. Immediately when you are afraid, you cannot do the right thing you have to do. And the politics is playing very often with this fear. Yeah, the politicians love to make strategies, some of them. Yeah? It's easy to get elected by creating fear and then put yourself as a savior from certain danger. And we see it. We see it in the cases when one municipality wished to establish something, then the neighborhood immediately build on the fear that it's dangerous, it's not good. And you mentioned the biogas project in Austria, which is put next to the Hungarian border. Yeah, the Austrians are standing for it, the Hungarians are fighting against it, and it's an endless fight between the two countries now for the decade. Yeah, that's the case. So the fear is a very important factor what the politicians have to deal with. And the reason I came to the politics on those issues, because I reject all political movement built on any kind of fear. Fear is the worst worst mean for politicians in any substance, not only talking about extremism, but also about talking these kind of things. And I think that these were my most important talks. However, I have some good news, because I think that in the last few years I have been here in the European Parliament, we could agree together with the member states in 2 items. That for the next century, or this century we are living in, the 2 major drivers for the industrial projects will be the 2 things. One is low carbon, and the second one is smart. And I think that this is decided now. Yeah? There is a political agreement across parties, across countries, across political movements in these 2 things. And therefore we have got the right direction. Yeah? You can stand for low carbon, you can stand for being smart. And I think these are 2 major important drivers we can build regarding any industrial projects, also for the low-carbon technologies. But if I would be in the low-carbon energy technologies, I would build in low-carbon as a general, because we are going for low-carbon for furniture production. We are going for low-carbon technologies for, I don't know, car production. So the low-carbon issue is not only for the energy project itself, but it's the most generic change within the industrial world as such. And therefore, I think that there is a further place for build in that low-carbon movement. And you can get the young, you can get the older, you can get the engineer, and you can get the teacher into that direction. I think it has to be a societal move. Otherwise, it will be very, very difficult to move forward. Thanks.
Thank you very much indeed. And I would apply to you a similar question that I applied to the Commissioner a few moments ago. Tell us a bit more about the regional local government setup in Hungary and its interaction on things like planning decisions for major energy projects, or even pilot test projects for low carbon energy.
As you have seen, Hungary is quite a last in the queue for applying these new technologies, and it's hard to understand why, because there is no any general objection why we cannot go for it. It's very interesting to see that regarding energy projects, there is a large societal agreement that we have to build a second nuclear power plant. It's a surprise compared to any other nations. Yeah. And my explanation might be that regarding energy, we have one fare, which is the fare of the independence from the gas. We are very much dependent on the gas, and therefore anything can change the gas, especially for electricity production in the large scale, is good for the country. But we are very much dependent on the technology-driven projects, because we are technology dependent as well. So whatever technology we choose it from foreign source, and therefore the local skills to decide what is good, what is best, it's very difficult to get at the local municipal level, and therefore they are rather wait. So they rather do not decide than go for something. I believe that in the new member states, if we do not wish to be a second-hand countries, which I don't think that push from Brussels, but it's much more that we do not go for it, therefore we remain behind. Yeah? So it's not a political target of Brussels that we are second-handed. It's our own choice, unfortunately. Yeah? Or just we let it happen with us. We do not drive the issue. I think it's true for all of the countries. I think it has to be changed. But certainly, we have seen it during the campaign. Now, we had a local election this weekend, and one city wanted to build the low-carbon energy factory, actually, and the others said that no, this place is for the tourists, this is for the Tokaj wine, and there is no any project can come here. And it was the debate on the local election. Yeah, the 2 mayors were fighting instead of getting an agreement. I think that you have to get an agreement on those issues, that it's important for your country, that it's important for your own society. I think we have a lot to learn there, and I'm absolutely sure that those new and good techniques regarding communication developed in Denmark and in other countries should be transported first to Central Eastern Europe to get a change there. I don't think that we can do it on our own. I'm not very hopeful.
Okay, and let me just clarify, it's the journalistic curiosity in me. Which side won, the low-carbon energy or the Tokai wine?
The Tokai wine, of course.
Okay.
It's a national pride. I disagree with that.
Right. I'm continuing on the political theme. We're going to come back, though, to Western Europe. Annabelle Jacquet, whom I just didn't see earlier when I was... Actually, I have to confess that Walloon regional government, and you'll know that the regional governments are heavily involved in Belgium's current presidency of the Council of Ministers. One thing I should have said a lot earlier is that there are some interpreters who are kindly working away in those booths, and between French and English. And I think Annabelle is going to speak in French, but feel free to be moved to anything, really. Annabelle.
Effectivement, je me permets de continuer en français qui est beaucoup plus...
You'll need a microphone.
Ok. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much indeed. Yes, I should like to continue in French because it's easier for me to speak. It allows me to express myself in a more subtle fashion. In Wallonia, sustainable development got off the ground a little bit later than elsewhere, most notably in Denmark, as we've just heard. This being said, I think that we are certainly on track, and we have outstripped our objectives set for 2010. Please do not touch the red button if you are in the audience, because it cuts off the speaker's microphone, says the interpreter. The interpreter continues. So, we have caught up, we're on track, we've outstripped our wildest dreams for 2010, and we're now looking to 2020 with a will to meet the requirements stipulated by the Commission. We want to develop renewables in tandem with wind energy. Our goals are rather ambitious and thus requires groundswell support from the citizenry at large. And thus there have been wide-ranging discussions on this. 93%, as revealed by a recent poll, 93% of the people in Wallonia support our goals, and 83% are prepared to have a wind engine in their backyard. And that's very important to note, and stands in stark contrast to what you read in the media, in the newspapers, and here on television or radio, where it is said that people are certainly against wind farms and whatnot. But that's not true. Our polls show that people are behind us, and perhaps the people who are not in agreement with this objective, representing a very small population, are simply more vocal. I should also say that what we have done has been successful. I think the Commission's project as presented certainly demonstrates this. In Wallonia, we have regular reporting on very positive examples of sustainable development and work with renewables. In order to be successful in this endeavor, we need to have a very clear legal framework. In 2002, there was a wind energy instrument produced by the Commission that provides a very nice point of reference and allowed us to organize consultations so as to garner the support of the population at large. This has also facilitated a debate amongst the various stakeholders. There is a degree of tension, inherent tension existing between overall environmental objectives and very locally based environmental objectives. I made reference earlier to a communication, awareness-raising campaign organized through video kits, brochures, and whatnot. We have educational materials, but we also have real-life people who go out, talk to the population, accompany people in their attempts to solve problems when indeed they want to engage in sustainable development by using or developing renewable energies. So we want people to have access to reliable information through channels other than those coming from the press or official bodies or business. So we have mediators going out, spreading the word, facilitating. We also have a Vade Mecum, which is being drawn up, and that allows individual citizens to take ownership of any given project. There are two ways of doing this. The first allows direct participation of citizens in projects. That's worked very nicely. But we also have work through local authorities or groups of local authorities who, as a group, take ownership of wind energy projects, or most recently we saw one with a biomass. That's another dimension of renewable energies going hand in hand with wind energy. We have rural local authorities involved, getting organized around mobilizing their biomass. We also understand that at local level, sometimes another problem that arises is accommodation. We try to help people with this as well. We carry out consultations with people on the ground, stakeholders, beneficiaries. We try to get everybody involved because understanding is key. Understanding is a key. We also understand that people, when they make an investment in renewable energies, need to feel as if there's going to be a tangible economic return on the money that they invest. And so we help them understand how to identify that return on their economic investment. Now, alongside the work we've done with renewable energies, other projects have been undertaken, but with greater difficulty. Allow me to explain. We find that everything rolls along very smoothly until we get to the point where a group or a person is trying to sell the idea of a project to the population. That's where people find it difficult to make a transition. And so we found it much more effective to get individuals involved in projects so that they take ownership. That allows us to be more mindful of their concerns, most notably is employment or lack thereof. Belgium is at present trying to develop employment at local and European level, using new technologies, and we're trying to get that message out because we think that if we can create employment locally and at European level through new technologies, we would then have a good product that is exportable. So the basic message we need to get across is as follows. To help users understand what they can get out of this, to help local authorities understand what the benefits would be for them. Now, clearly, I could go into a much greater level of detail, but I won't. I think it's important for you to understand that we've got wind energy, biomass projects, all of which fit into a legal framework, each of which enjoys a social dimension as well. We're also concerned about the issue of security, energy security, and safety as well. If, for example, you've got solar panels which are installed on the roofs of private homes, new questions come to the fore which require an answer. In other words, if those sun panels are defective and there's a fire, are firemen at present adequately trained so as to intervene and stop the fire effectively? So, as we move down this path, questions arise, problems arise, and we work on and through these obstacles. We rely upon you, we rely upon support from the political world, stakeholders, elected officials, users. We try to get out as clear a message as possible to the public at large. Our information awareness-raising campaign is of considerable magnitude. We try to be extremely specific in the terms that we use when we carry out our evaluations. Whatever area that remains unclear is an area that we need to explore and clarify for the benefit of the population at large. When people don't get off the mark quickly enough, it's easy to point the finger at them and criticize them. When people get off the mark too early, they're equally subject to criticism. We're trying to do things in a proper, clear fashion, keeping a very close eye to what's happening in the field, on the ground. And final point, compensation. We're very sensitive to this. We're very prudent. And in fact, we have a very strong position here. We feel that renewable energies have not been sufficiently recognized or compensated or acknowledged in financial terms. On the contrary, people often get the notion that it's not fair to be asked to have these kinds of installations near their homes. Instead of talking about compensation, we think that co-management is a much better key word.
Follow up on that issue of compensation. Are you in step with the other regional governments? That's to say, the Brussels and the Flemish regional governments in that point of view. And the other point is, you're working in the field of the regional government. The relations between the commune governments and the regional governments. How does that work? Is most of the power vested in the regional government?
Donc, c'est une matière.
This is entirely regionalized. Obviously, we have ongoing dialogue and consultations with our colleagues in other regions. But each region is responsible for itself. Now we have enough experience to draw some preliminary conclusions. We've had some participatory exercises carried out in Flanders. We've been very keen to understand what they have done, not just at political level, but within enterprises. Yes, we're very attentive to what people are doing back home, even though we might, in individual or discrete regions, adopt positions which are different. Obviously, we could have a difference in a point of view whilst pursuing the same objectives. But it must be recognized that Flanders and Wallonia have different political options made available to them. And then, at a local authorities level, I can tell you that for each legislative or policy project which is going to have an impact upon local authorities, we consult the Conseil supérieur des autorités locales, which is basically the Supreme Council of Local Authorities. They are consulted. We consult local authorities and the parliamentarians and deputies who are elected to represent people living in specific localities.